Welcome back. I'm Stephen, and this is episode 7 of the Ejaries.a podcast. Today, we look at how Ejaries connect to visa applications. Most tenants in Dubai are residents on a UAE visa. The visa is the legal status that lets you live and work in the country. Renewing the visa, sponsoring family members, and several adjacent procedures all touch on where you live and how you can prove it. This is where Ejaries come back into the picture. Immigration uses Ejaries as proof of your residential address when that proof is needed. When immigration needs Ejaries, immigration doesn't ask for Ejaries in every visa-related transaction. It depends on what you're doing. For an initial employer-sponsored work visa, immigration is concerned with your employment relationship and your medical clearance. Your address may be requested, but Ejaries themselves typically aren't the document that proves it at that stage. For renewing a residence visa, the picture starts to change. If your address has changed since the initial visa, or if there's been a long gap, you may be asked to confirm your current residence with Ejaries. For sponsoring family members, bringing a spouse, children, or parents onto your visa, Ejaries become more central. Immigration wants to confirm that the sponsor has a residence appropriate for the dependents being added. Ejaries are the proof of that residence. For independent investor or property owner visa categories, where the visa is tied to the property you own or live in, Ejaries or title deed documents are core to the application. For golden visa applications and other long-term residence categories, the documentation requirements vary, but commonly include Ejaries, where the applicant is a tenant rather than a property owner. What immigration verifies. When immigration requests Ejaries, what they're verifying is straightforward: that the applicant legally occupies a residence in Dubai, that the residence is suitable for the visa category and any dependents involved, that the tenancy is on the central register and not improvised. The Ejaries certificate provides all of this in a single document: the address, the tenant, the duration, the fact of registration. Immigration can verify it against the central register if they need to confirm authenticity. This is one of the reasons Ejaries are valuable beyond their primary purpose. They serve as a universal proof of residence that the rest of the government system trusts. Family sponsorship and Ejaries. Family sponsorship is where Ejaries questions come up most often. To sponsor a spouse or children onto your residence visa, immigration confirms that you have a residence appropriate for them. The appropriateness test isn't strict, but the existence of the residence is. Ejaries are the document. For spouse sponsorship, immigration typically wants to see Ejaries with the sponsor as the registered tenant. The spouse doesn't need to be on the Ejaries directly. The dependency is established through the sponsorship, not through joint tenancy. The Ejaries simply confirm the sponsor's address. For child sponsorship, the same applies. The Ejaries are the sponsors. The child's link to the address is through the sponsorship relationship. For parent sponsorship, sponsoring a parent onto a residence visa, the requirements are more involved. Immigration typically wants additional evidence that the parents will live in the sponsor's home, which can include the Ejaries. In each of these scenarios, the Ejaries do the work of proving where the sponsor lives. The visa decision involves additional documents and tests, but the Ejaries are the residence anchor. The change of address problem. A common scenario where Ejaries cause complications in visa procedures is when a resident has moved house since their last visa transaction. Imagine you renewed your visa 2 years ago at your previous address. You've since moved. You want to sponsor your spouse onto a residence visa. Immigration asks for Ejaries. The Ejaries you have are for your new address. Immigration's records still show your old address. The mismatch isn't a problem in itself. Immigration can update their records based on the new Ejaries. What it can cause is processing delay if the discrepancy needs to be reconciled before the sponsorship can proceed. The cleanest practice is to update your address with immigration when you move, independently of any other transaction. Some channels make this easy through the ETA app or the GD app channels. The update keeps your records aligned with reality and avoids friction when you need a future transaction to go through. Multi-tenant properties. A specific scenario worth addressing is when multiple, unrelated tenants share a property. For example, flatmates in a multi-bedroom apartment. The Ejaries record typically names one principal tenant on the contract. Others may be listed as co-occupants or may not appear on the Ejaries at all, depending on how the contract is written. For visa procedures, the person whose name is on the Ejaries can use it as proof of their address. Co-occupants who aren't on the Ejaries may need additional documentation, typically a notarized confirmation from the principal tenant or a separate contract for their portion of the property. This is one of the places where casual flatmate arrangements that work for living purposes can become friction points for residency procedures. The fix is to ensure that everyone living at the address has documentation supporting their residence at it, even if the Ejaries is in only one name, sponsor income, and the residence link. A related point: sponsorship for spouse and child residence visas in Dubai is subject to minimum income requirements for the sponsor. The income test is separate from the Ejaries requirement, but both come together in the sponsorship application. The Ejaries prove the residence. The income proves the financial capacity to support the dependents. Both need to be in order for the sponsorship to proceed. Tenants who are approaching the sponsorship application should ensure both their Ejaries and their income documentation are current and aligned. A common cause of sponsorship delay is paperwork that's been in transition, a recent address change, a recent job change where the documents don't yet reflect the current settled position. The Ejaries certificate works as universal proof of address across the visa system. The cleaner the document, the smoother the visa transaction. Holiday home and short-term rentals. A note on exceptions: properties rented through holiday home or short-term rental arrangements typically don't generate standard Ejaries. They register through a separate system specific to holiday home licensing for someone whose only Dubai address is a holiday home rental. This can create complications when Ejaries are required for a visa procedure. The standard Ejaries channels won't have a record. The holiday home registration is a different document. The fix in this case is usually to obtain a long-term tenancy and register standard Ejaries, particularly for residents who plan to remain in Dubai and intend to sponsor family. Holiday home arrangements work well for transient stays. They work less well as the foundation for residency procedures. What to take from this episode: immigration uses Ejaries as proof of residential address for visa procedures, particularly family sponsorship. Family sponsorship, spouse, children, parents, depends on Ejaries to confirm the sponsor has an appropriate residence for the dependents. When you move house, update your address with immigration alongside whatever Ejaries registration the move triggers. Keep the records aligned to avoid friction in future transactions. Co-occupants not named on the Ejaries may need separate documentation for residency procedures. Casual flatmate arrangements need to be documented for the residents who aren't on the principal contract. Holiday home rentals don't generate standard Ejaries. For residency purposes, a long-term tenancy with proper Ejaries is the cleaner foundation. In the next episode, we look at the differences between Ejaries for residential tenancies and Ejaries for commercial tenancies. Two different subsystems with different rules. Thanks for listening. The full transcript is at transcript.a. For Ejaries registration support, Ejaries.a is the operational service.